Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 13. Ata Pumbir Vijashrestha
Tata Pumbhi Dvijashrestha
Varna Sharma Vibhagasha
Varnashrama Vivagasha
Swanushthitasya Dharmasya
Swanutishtasya Dharmasya
Samsiddhir Haritoshanam.
Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. Hare
So
Krishna.
please read.
Yeah, O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste, divisions, and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. Purport. Human society all over the world is divided into four castes and four orders of life. The four castes are the intelligent caste, the material caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes are classified in terms of one's work and qualification and not by birth. Then again, there are four orders of life, namely the student life, the householder's life, the retired life, and the devotional life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such divisions of life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow in a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of personality of Godhead. This institutional function of human society is known as the system of Vanashrama Dharma, which is quite natural for the civilized life. The Vanashrama institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for artificial domination of one division over another. When the aim of life, that is realization of absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment for indriya priti or sense gratification, as already discussed here in before. The institution of Vanashrama is utilized by selfish men to pose an artificial predominance over the weaker section. In the Kali Yuga or in the age of quarrel, this artificial predominance is already current, but the saner section of people know it well that the divisions of castes and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high thinking, self realization, and not for any other purpose. Here in the statement of Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life or the highest perfection of the institution of the Vanashrama Dharma is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of Supreme Lord. This is called confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, section 4.13.
So Sutta Goswami is continuing to answer the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya. So what he's saying, that prescribe one's own occupational duties, whatever one's duties are. In the Varna Sharma system, Krishna himself says that he has made this Varna Sharma society. He says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4. Now this Varna Sharma society, the divisions of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and then there the ashram. Ashram is Brahmachari, Grahast, Vanaprasth, and Sannyasi. So the Varnashrama system is not based on birth. It's not that Krishna divided the Brahman Kshatriya, Shudra, and Vaishya based on birth, but based on guna and karma, based on the nature one has acquired, based on one's activities. Later, it got degraded into the ordinary caste system, but the original, and that's why it was abolished, kind of. But Varna Sharma, as such, is eternal. It can never be given up because we all work according to a particular nature. And so, some people are more inclined to management, to leadership, administration. So those are like the natural Kshatriyas. Some people are more naturally inclined to trade, finance, banking, agriculture, business, and those are the Vaishyas. Some are more inclined to studies, like to study, or they like to teach, then those are Brahmanika. And then there is one who like to give service to the other sections of society, then that comes in the Shudra. So these sections are there naturally. Even though now in modern society, the divisions are not so marked, so well defined. They are not so well defined. But the idea is that one performs whatever duties they have in society for the pleasure of God. That is the perfection. Because people just think, okay, it's my duty to do my duty. But we need to go further to understand, duty to do our duty for the pleasure of God is to please the personality of Godhead. Krishna also says the same in Bhagavad Gita that, oh Arjuna, you offer the results of your activities to me. Whatever you do, do it for my pleasure. So same here, Sutta Goswami is saying, Samsiddhi Hari Toshanam, Samsiddhi, highest perfection. Hari, personality of God, and Toshanam, pleasing. Mm. So, yeah, this is what Bhagavad Gita is saying that, Bhagavatam is saying that. Reading on. Tasmad ekena manasa
Tasmadekena manasa
Bhagavan Sattvatam Patehe
Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati
Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha
Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha
Dhyeya Pujyascha Nityadam.
Jyeya Pushyascha Nityada. Translation. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Purport. If realization of the absolute truth is the ultimate aim of life, it must be carried out by all means. In any one of the above mentioned castes and orders of life, the four processes, namely glorifying, hearing, remembering, and worshipping, and are general occupations. Without these principles of life, no one can exist. Activities of living being involve engagements in these four different principles of life. Especially in modern society, all activities are more or less dependent on hearing and glorifying. Any man from any social status becomes a well known man in human society within a very short time if he is simply glorified truly or falsely in daily newspapers. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda, and by such a method of glorification, an insignificant man becomes an important man within no time. But such propaganda by false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good, either for the particular man or for the society. There may be some temporary reactions to such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time. The actual object of glorification is Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has created everything manifested before us. We have broadly discussed that fact from beginning of the Janmadi Asha sloka of this Bhagavatam. The tendency to glorify others or hear others must be turned to the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being, and that will bring happiness.
Sutta Goswami is continuing to say, he's saying that one should one pointed attention, means we should be fixed. Fixed in what? Constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship. Hearing, chanting, remembering, and worship. Who? The personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. So Prabhupada is helping us understand that, without these principles, actually no life can exist. Because if we see, we also, now, okay, we say, for example, we see on social media, more and more we are hearing about some famous person, talking about them, speaking about them, that how good they are. We are remembering them. And we look up to them, We may look at like we follow someone, we want to be like someone. So that's kind of a worship. But all this should be directed towards the Supreme Lord, hearing, glorifying, remembering, and worship to the Supreme Lord. And that is the uh, aim of this human life. Then we will be able to realize the absolute truth. The Supreme Lord, He's called the protector of the devotees. Because when we glorifying or remembering or, hearing about someone on the material platform, then that is all temporary. And that's going to keep us here more and more in the material world. But the more we hear about God, speak about Him, glorify Him, remember Him, worship Him, it helps us get out of this material world. So it's purifying. Text 15. Yad anudhyasena yukta
Yad, yad anudhyastina yukta
karma granthi nibandhanam
karma granthi nibandhanam
chindanti kovidastasya
chindati kovidatasya
ko na kuryat katharatim.
ko na kuryat katharatim. Translation. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut through the binding knots of re- reactionary work karma by remembering the personality of Godhead, therefore, who will not pay attention to his message. Purport. The contact of the spiritual spark with material elements creates a knot which must be cut if one wants to be liberated from the actions and reactions of fruitive works. Liberation means freedom from the cycle of reactionary work. This liberation automatically follows for one who constantly remembers the transcendental pastimes of personality of Godhead. This is because all the activities of Supreme Lord, His Leela, are transcendental to the modes of the material energy. They are all attractive, spiritual activities and therefore constant association with the spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately serves the note of material bondage.
Yes, so the Goswami is saying. So he said that by our duties, we have to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. Um, and then he said that for everyone's benefit, we need to hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with one pointed attention. Because the sages are asking what is the ultimate welfare of everyone. So, what everyone's duty should be. So, here Sutta Goswami is saying that everyone's duty should be to engage in hearing and chanting and glorifying, worshipping the Supreme Lord. And also, by all, whatever duties we perform should be performed for the pleasure of God. So then he's going on to say that intelligent men, what they are cutting, what is the sword in hand? The intelligent men, they are cutting through the binding knots of reactionary work. So they are cutting the karma. How? By remembering God. Yeah? So by remembering, by following his instructions. So he's saying, therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? So the sword is this, the sadhana, the hearing, the chanting, yeah, by remembering the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada is saying that we are the spirit soul and we are here in the material world. Our combination has created a knot, and this knot has to be cut if we want liberation. So liberation, Prabhupada explains, is freedom from cycle of reactionary work. You know, that we do some action and then we are going to get some future reaction. So the karma. And one who is remembering constantly the Supreme Lord, one who's constantly remembering Krishna, his liberation is automatic. He has no more reactions of the material world. So because God is transcendental, his name is transcendental, his pastimes are transcendental, they don't create any karma. They are all attractive. And when one associates with God in such a way, then the soul can cut this knot, this material knot, this knot of the material world. So hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping the Supreme Lord.
Liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service. Attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. Such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service so that ultimately the devotional service alone dominates, then liberation is made possible. Even the reactionary work of the fruitive workers can lead one to the liberation when it is overcoated with devotional service. Karma overcoated with devotional service is called karma yoga. Similarly, empirical knowledge overcoated with devotional service is called jnana yoga. But pure bhakti yoga is independent of such karma and jnana because it alone cannot only endow one with liberation from conditional life but also award one the transcendental loving service of the Lord.
So devotional service, bhakti. This is how one can get liberated. One who's engaging in bhakti is automatically liberated. And that's why I said that liberation is a byproduct of devotional service. When one engages in devotional service, bhakti becomes automatic. It's automatic. It's gonna come. So Gyan, here Prabhupada is saying karma, when one is engaged in fruitive activities, if those activities are connected to God, becomes the results are offered to God, it becomes karma yoga. Yeah. When karma, when we add devotional service to it, it becomes yoga, karma yoga. Gyan, knowledge, when we engage in devotional service, becomes Gyan Yoga. But bhakti, of course, it's the highest. And this is what is needed, pure bhakti yoga. It can give us prema, Krishna prema. Not only can liberate us, but give us Krishna prema.
Therefore, any sensible man who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the personality of Godhead by hearing about him, by glorifying him, by remembering him, and by worshipping him always without cessation. That is the perfect way of devotional service. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were authorized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach the bhakti cult, rigidly followed this rule and made immense literatures of transcendental science for our benefit. They have chalked out ways for all classes of men in terms of different castes and orders of life in pursuance of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and similar other authoritative scriptures.
So, Prabhupada is saying anyone who is intelligent, hmm, one even who is intelligent must constantly remember the Supreme Lord. How? How to remember the Supreme Lord? By hearing about Him. Hear from Bhagavatam, hear from Bhagavad Gita, by glorifying His glories, by remember Him and worship Him constantly. This is the perfection. This is what Sutta Goswami is saying that one must do, and one will automatically get liberated. So the Prabhupada is saying the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, they they were doing this. And they wrote so many bhakti literatures, so many books on bhakti. And they were the Bhagavatas, they were living their life according to Bhagavatam. And they've given us this immense literatures. They've showed us the path. And we are followers, we're trying to follow in their footsteps. So constantly hearing, chanting, remembering, and worshipping the Supreme Lord. Text 16. Shushusho Shradhadanasya
Sushosha Shradhadanasya
Vasudeva Katharuchi
Vasudeva Katharuchi
Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra
Syanmahasevya Kripya
Punya Tirtha Nishevana.
Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. Translation. Oh, no, this we did done. No?
No, now we are doing this. No?
Oh, but this translation, I think I read before. Okay, Hare Krishna. O twice born says, by serving those devotees who were completely freed from all vice, great services is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. Purport. The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called devas or godly living beings, and there are men called asuras or demons who are against the authority of Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, a vivid description of asuras is given in which it is said that the asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth. the personality of Godhead. These asuras are gradually rectified to the God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of God, godlessness, they are known as powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or associates of the Lord. But none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is the blasphemy declared by the Asuras, and the demonic followers of such Asuras also accept pretenders as God or his incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is definite information of incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures.
So here, Prabhupada is pointing out the conditioned living being. Why are we here in the material world? Because we revolted against God. We told God we want to have a life without you, you know. So that's why we came here in the material world, because in the spiritual world it's not possible. Then Prabhupada is saying that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that there are two types of people, the asuras and the devas. The devas are the devotees, and the asuras are the demons who are going rebelling against Lord. They don't want to follow the instructions of God. And then Krishna goes on to say that how the people who don't want to follow the instructions of God are then put into lower and lower stages of ignorance, like maybe animal life or planet life in hellish planets. Because in that kind of life, there's no information of God. One cannot hear and chant the glories of God. In animal life, it's very rare. You can't. The body is not so is the consciousness is very covered. But gradually again, by the mercy of God, they are given again by the evolution, the cycle of evolution, they again get human bodies and the mercy of the Lord's pure devotees, liberated servitors. The pure devotee is liberated. And these pure devotees, they go everywhere, telling everyone to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. They are servants of the Lord, they are confidential associates of the Lord, but they never say that they are God. They say, I'm servant of God. They say, I'm servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of God. So these confidential associates, they will never say God. They will never say they are God. They'll in fact teach us how to recognize who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because the descriptions of the Supreme Lord are given in all the scriptures. So they in fact help us to understand, not to accept anyone as God or an incarnation of God who's not mentioned in the revealed scriptures.
The servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or Ti- tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself, according to the indication of revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God. Although undoubtedly he was God himself, the Lord behaves so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God.
So the servants of God, they never say that they are God. They cannot accept hearing from people they are God because only God is God. Servants of God are His servants. Hmm? But they are to be given highest respect. They are to be respected as God. Why? Because they are taking us to God. They are teaching us about God. That's why. But they will never say that I am God. The servants of God always say, I'm servant of God. So Lord Chaitanya, he set this example. He's Krishna himself. He's God himself. He came in Kali Yuga and he knew in Kali Yuga there would be so many people who want to be called incarnation of God. So Lord Chaitanya, he set the standard. Although he's God himself, anyone who would even call him that you are God, he would close his ears and say, I'm not God. No, I'm not God. Only Krishna is God. So this is for us to guard ourselves because some people may take advantage of our faith. So you have to understand that God or his incarnation, to accept one as God or his incarnation, they should be mentioned in the revealed scriptures and by the great authorities, like Lord Brahma, Vyasadeva, Narad Muni. These are great authorities.
The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected because such servants risk everything for service of the Lord and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita 18.69 that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually gets the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee, eligible for entering the kingdom of God.
So the servants of God, they are very, very dear to God. They have come here to tell us about God. They're coming here to tell us about love of God. Tell us they come here to take us back home, back to Godhead. And God is very pleased when such servants are served, respected, because they are taking great risk. They take so much effort for us. They're traveling everywhere to give us Krishna consciousness. Krishna says himself in Bhagavad Gita that one who is risking everything to preach this message is very dear to him. So we should become servant of the servants of the servant of the servant. Then we get the quality of such servants. And then we get the qualification to hear about the Lord. And once we get the eagerness to hear about the Lord, that is the qualification to bring us back home, back to Godhead. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. So, see, this is how Krishna is made. That when we serve the devotees, Krishna is saying here, that serving those devotees who are completely free from vice means the pure devotees. By anyone who serves the pure devotees, this is great service. Why? Because when one serves the pure devotees, one gets this eagerness to hear about God, hear the messages of Vasudev, hear from Bhagavatam, hear from Bhagavad Gita by serving the devotees. So Krishna, because he cares so much of the devotees that once anyone serves the devotees, Krishna gives them this eagerness to hear. Shanvatam Swakatha Krishna
Sarvatam Swakatha
Krishna
Krishna
Punya Shavana Kirtana
Punya Sharvana Kirtana
Hridi Antasto Hi Abhadrani
Hriday Anta Vidrani
Vidunoti Suhrit Satam.
Vidunoti Surus Satsatam. Can I read?
Please.
Translation. Hare Krishna. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desires for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his message, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Purport. Messages of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, are non-different from him. Whenever, therefore, offenseless hearing and glorification of gods are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Krishna is present there in the form of transcendental sounds, which are as powerful as the Lord personally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his Shiksha Shastaka, declares clearly that the holy name of the Lord has all the potencies of the Lord, and that he has endeavored his innumerable names with the same potencies. There is no rigid fixture of time, and anyone can chant the holy name with attention and reverence at his convenience. The Lord is so kind to us that he can be present there before us personally in the form of transcendental sound. But unfortunately, we have no taste for hearing and glorifying the Lord's name and activities. We have already discussed developing a taste for hearing and chanting the holy sound. It is done through the medium of service to the pure devotee of the Lord.
So the Goswami said that when one engages in service to the pure devotee, one gets this desire to hear about the Lord. So serving. And then what happens then? One is hearing and chanting the messages of the Lord. What happens is the Paramatma who's in our heart, Lord Krishna, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who's the Paramatma. So Krishna is Paramatma in the heart. Then what does he do? He himself cleans the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear the messages. So to get this desire to hear the messages, we need to serve the pure devotees. And once we develop this desire to hear, when we get this eagerness to hear, then Krishna, who's in our heart, he himself cleans up our desire for material sense enjoyment. So wherever there is offenseless hearing and glorification of the Lord, because, that means hearing from the pure devotees, hearing in the disciplic succession, hearing in the parampara. Then Krishna is present himself. He's Krishna and his name, they are non-different. Prabhupada is quoting Shikshastaka that Lord Chaitanya is saying that the holy name of the Lord has all the potencies of the Lord. It's non-different. Krishna and his name, non-different. Chanting of the name can be done at any time by anyone, in any condition. So God is so kind. Krishna is so kind to us that he's with us in his form of sound. This sound is transcendental. Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. It's coming from Golok Vrindavan directly. But what about us? We have no desire to hear and chant. Now, how can we develop this desire? Serve the pure devotee of the Lord. And by this, one will be able to get this taste for hearing and chanting. This is what Sutta Goswami is telling us here.
The Lord is reciprocally respondent to his devotees. When he sees that a devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord and has thus become eager to hear about him, the Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. The Lord is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire to go back to Godhead. Only a few men want to go back to Godhead. But anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects.
So when Krishna sees the sincerity of a devotee who really wants to go back to Godhead, Krishna reciprocates. It's not one-sided. Krishna reciprocates. When Krishna sees one is eager to hear about him, then Krishna makes the arrangements for the devotee to go back home, back to Godhead. Because Krishna is like a kind father. The father, when he sees his son suffering on the street, will say, "My God, my dear son, come back home. Why are you suffering here? Come live with me." You know? So Krishna wants each of us to go back. He's calling us. We see in Bhagavad Gita, he's continuously telling us, come back. Here, Bhagavatam, we are hearing. All these messages are there for us to go back home, back to Godhead. So most of us, we want to stay here in the material world. That's why we are here. We have been here since millions and millions of life. So Prabhupada is saying only few want to go back. But whoever wants to go back, Krishna makes the arrangement. Krishna helps.
One cannot enter into the kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. The material sins are products of our desire to lord it over material nature. It is very difficult to get rid of such desires. Women and wealth are very difficult problems for devotee making progress on the path back to Godhead. Many stalwarts in the devotional line fell victims to these allurements and thus retreated from the path of liberation. But when one is helped by the Lord Himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord.
The mercy of the Lord. Now, because of our sins, then we are continuing to have more and more material desires. Our desire to sin is still there. Our desire to control this material nature is there. And so it's very difficult to give it up. Until the time we don't give it up, we cannot enter the kingdom of God because our desire to be in the material world is there. So, and everything is based on our desire. Krishna is kind. If we desire to be in the material world, he keeps us here. If we desire to go to the spiritual world, he helps us. So, one who takes the help of Krishna, one is helped by the Lord himself. When Krishna sees one is eager to hear about him, and when Krishna sees one is eager to go back home, back to Godhead, he has the eagerness to hear Krishna Katha. Krishna makes his arrangement. By our strength, there's the ascending process and descending. Bhakti is a line of descending process. The mercy is coming to us from Krishna through the disciplic succession, the acharyas, and they're all helping us in our path back home, back to Godhead. The ascending process is, oh, I'm going to get liberation by myself without any help from God. That becomes very, very difficult. Very difficult because material desires very difficult to give up.
To become restless in the contact of women and wealth is not an astonishment, because every living being is associated with such things from remote time, practically immemorial. And it takes time to recover from this foreign nature. But if one is engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, Gradually, he realizes his real position. By the grace of God, such a devotee gets sufficient strength to defend himself from the state of disturbances, and gradually, all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind.
Prabhupada is saying it's natural for us to have this material desires. For the man, it's the woman. For the woman, it's the man. And wealth allurement is there. All these material desires are there. Why? Because we are living here in the material world since a very, very long time. So it's become like kind of automatic nature for us. It's become automatic, although we are spirit souls. So, but if one regularly hears, regularly, constantly hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, gradually, we will be able to understand our real position by the mercy of God. God is giving, Krishna is giving the strength to the devotee to walk on this spiritual path. And gradually, one goes back home, back to Godhead, understands oneself as spirit, soul, part and parcel of God. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Did anyone have any comments or questions? So we are seeing the line. What Sutta Goswami is saying. He says that by all our occupational duties, samsiddhir haritoshanam, please the Supreme Lord. Then the activity should be hearing, chanting, remembering, glorifying the Supreme Lord. Then how will we be able to do this? Serve the devotee. One who has served the pure devotee of the Lord, he gets this eagerness to hear about the Lord. And when when Krishna sees one has this eagerness to hear about him, then Krishna is the one who helps the cleaning. He helps us take away our material desires. So depending on the mercy of Krishna to, to take away our material desires. And then what happens? Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu
Nashta prayeshu abhidreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
nityam bhagavata sevaya
bhagavate uttama shloke
bhagavata uttama shloke
bhaktir bhavati naishtiki.
bhakti bhavati neshtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Here is the remedy for eliminating all inauspicious things within the heart, which are considered to be obstacles in the path of self realization. The remedy is the association of the Bhagavatas. There are two types of Bhagavatas, namely the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. Both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them or either of them can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. A devotee Bhagavata is as good as the book Bhagavata because the devotee Bhagavata leads his life in the terms of the book Bhagavata, and the book Bhagavata is full of the information about the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees who are also Bhagavatas. Bhagavata, book, and person are identical.
So nityam bhagavata sevaya. Nityam, constantly, regularly uh, serving the Bhagavatas. Bhagavad Prabhupada is explaining as two types. One is Bhagavatam, this book, the Srimad Bhagavatam, regularly hearing and chanting Bhagavatam, which is full of narrations of the Supreme Lord and his devotees, the Bhagavatas, the pure devotees. And the person Bhagavat, one who is living his life according to Bhagavatam, So serving either or both of them. This is what is this, the remedy. Associate with the Bhagavatas. Bhagavatam, the book Bhagavatam, or the devotee Bhagavata who's living his life according to Bhagavad.
The devotee Bhagavata is a direct representation of Bhagwan, the personality of Godhead. So, by pleasing the devotee Bhagavata, one can receive the benefit of the book Bhagavata. Human reasons fail to understand how, by serving the devotee Bhagavata or the book Bhagavata, one gets gradual promotion on the path of devotion. But actually, these are facts explained by Srila Narada Deva, who happened to be a maid servant's son in his previous life. The maid servant was engaged in the menial service of the sages, and thus he also came into contact with them. And simply by associating with them and accepting the remnants of foodstuffs left by the sages, the son of the maid servant got the chance to become the great devotee and personality, Srila Narad Deva. These are the miraculous effects of the association of Bhagavatas. And to understand these effects practically, it should be noted that by such sincere association of the Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive transcendental knowledge very easily, with the result that he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. The more progress is made in devotional service under the guidance of the Bhagavatas, the more one becomes fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The message of the book Bhagavata therefore have to be received from the devotee Bhagavata, and the combination of these two Bhagavatas will help the neophyte devotee to make progress on and on.
So then Prabhupada is saying, one may wonder that, that how by serving the pure devotee, the Bhagavata, one can come to get this great spiritual advancement, get bhakti, how one can be engaged himself in pure devotional service by serving the pure devotee. One may wonder what is happening. But it's a fact. By pleasing the pure devotee, we get devotion. Because the devotee is the pure devotee, the pure devotee. He's a authorized representative of God. He's sent by God. He's given this work by God to bring us back home, back to Godhead. He has been given this. He's been empowered, just like the 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 embassy in Taiwan, the Indian embassy. They're authorized to issue passports, and with this passport, people can travel. So they're empowered by the government of India to issue the passport. Otherwise, anyone can open a shop and print their own passport, but that's not, it's not going to help. No one can travel with it. But when one is authorized by the government to do so, then it's authorized. So the pure devotees is a representative of God. He has got this. He's empowered by the God. And by serving the pure devotees, we get devotional service. And Prabhupada is saying that we may wonder how, but example is Narad Muni. He was a son of a maidservant. He was a small boy of 4 or 5 years old. And he served the pure devotees. He served them and he ate their remnants. And then what happens? And he's in the next life, he has become Lord, he's become Narad Muni, such a great devotee. So this is a fact that by serving the Bhagavatas, one can become a Bhagavata. Uh, just like we take by association, we take the color of the association. No? So associate with the pure devotees, serve them. By serving the pure devotees, great service is done. Great progress is done in devotional life. Here Prabhupada is saying. And also we should receive this Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam should be heard in the association of devotees, should be heard from the devotees. and engaging in devotional service under the direction of the devotees. So there's this combination, Prabhupada is saying, the devotee Bhagavat and the book Bhagavat. And it helps us. It helps us in our devotional path. So regularly, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Regularly hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, from the pure devotees. So we'll stop here for today. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
It was said, right, that Narad Muni was Lord Brahma's son, right?
Yes.
So when the world was created, Brahma was the first god to get birth, and then he gave
Yes.
then Narad Muni was his son. Then how did Narad Muni have a previous birth?
Yeah. So
मतलब
we are
जब
going
ये
to hear
संसार
about
से
him.
हुआ तो then how
Yeah. So it was in the previous day. We are going to hear about it later when Narad Muni is going to explain this very detailed to Vyasadev. So very good, intelligent question. You see, every morning Brahma has to get up and again he creates this whole thing. So for one day of Brahma, Narad Muni, so he was the son of the maidservant. He engaged in devotional service. Then night of Brahma happens, the lower parts of the universe, they collapse. All the living entities are sleeping in Lord Vishnu's body. Next morning, again, when the creation happened, he is born as Narad Muni. Because the soul is eternal, right? So
Yeah.
soul is sleeping for a very, very long time in the body of Lord Vishnu. But when the next creation happened, the next morning, he is born as Narad Muni.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're going to be hearing about that soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much. La Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna. Tomorrow we are going to hear that continue as one regularly keeps on hearing Bhagavatam, what happens? How gradually the effects of passion, ignorance go away. It's very beautiful, this section. So we'll continue hearing from it tomorrow. Shla Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much for